I think that transparency is a big part of your legacy. Live streaming of proceedings, the fact that we can watch you sometimes say, don't shout at me and chuckle to ourselves. But more seriously, do you feel when you look back that transparency was one of your biggest achievements?
I think so, yes.
Yeah.
And I placed a great deal of importance on live streaming. Not because I'm a geek on technology. I'm fond of technology.
Yeah.
I don't claim to know everything. I mean, nobody can in today's world.
Why didn't you allow live streaming of everything? Why just constitutional benches?
I'll just come to that in a moment. The importance of live streaming is that it has enabled the court to take its proceedings to the homes and hearts of people. And it's promoted a degree of confidence when people look at what's happening in the court and they realize the seriousness with which small cases, individual cases are taken up by the court. That sends a message that, look, this is an ordered dialogue happening in the court. We may be right, we may be wrong. It's a human process. I'm not on the merits of any decision. But the fact that, individual cases of our citizens command that much of serious dialogue in the court sends a sense of confidence in the process, in the judicial process. Because ultimately what sustains the judiciary is just faith. You don't have the power of the purse or the sword. It's the faith of people. So I think live streaming in that sense has been a great game changer. Apart from that, it's promoted accountability. Very often courts are targeted on the ground that, well, this is Tariq pe Tariq, that you've been granting adjournments. I felt, let the people know why cases are adjourned in the court. Who asked for adjournments? Let people know. Let that be up in the public realm. Sometimes it's more difficult to get a lawyer to argue a case than to decide the case for a judge. And third, accountability on the part of the courts themselves. Are you sitting all day in court? When the high courts, have been live streaming, just the fact that you click and find out whether that judge is on duty or that judge has just got up at 2 o'clock and gone off, from court. So from all perspectives, live streaming in that sense is, center of transparency.
It's a great contribution. And
you asked me, Barkha,
why didn't you apply it to
all other courts? There was a technical issue. When we started, the infrastructure for live streaming was really implemented. We had it already in place as part of the e-courts project, which I was chairing through my last 5 years or so. But COVID really was a game changer when we, had to have, online and remote proceedings. Now, we had to create capacity. Live streaming for all courts has a tremendous burden on capacity. Right? Now, we had to have which means budgetary outlays.
That's right.
We got phase 3 of the e-courts project sanctioned by the government, pursuant to an all-party delegation of the Joint Parliamentary Committee. The Parliamentary Committee on the Department of Justice came to the Supreme Court. They were very gracious. They didn't ask me to go to Parliament House. They said, we don't want the judge to come here. We'll come to the Supreme Court and engage with the judge. And they actually saw for themselves what our mission was. And they recommended to the government that our budget should be cleared. We now have a budget of 7,000 crores as part of the e-courts project. Now, we have now utilized that budget to set up the cloud infrastructure because to live stream every court has a tremendous, you need the infrastructure in place. So the whole process was part of creating this robust platform. Now, the first 9 courts, I believe, in the Supreme Court are equipped to be all digital courts, paperless courts. You have you have these large screens, where you can have video conferencing facility. It's also been a great leveler. I find that more and more women have been appearing in courts because for women, it's very difficult to, women typically in our society have so many different responsibilities and roles. So to sit in court and wait for the whole day for your case to reach is just not productive enough. It's not productive enough for men, but particularly for women because, they're looking after families, a whole lot of other responsibilities. So it's wonderful to see young women lawyers, appearing through video conferencing so that they can spend their time in office.
But do you hope this will address the backlog? I mean, something we haven't spoken about is judicial reform, right? Backlog, the fact that we need more judges, we need more courts.
Barkha, my solution is very radical now that I have left the judiciary.
Which is?
So long as I was a judge, I had to be a soldier within the system.
Yes.
But unless we bring about structural changes, the backlog is not going to be addressed. We are asked, why don't you scrap vacations for courts?
Yeah.
And I always say that, look, there are always partial court vacations or partial court working. All right, suppose you scrap working, you scrap vacations. Last year, we had about 61,000 cases filed in the Supreme Court. 59,700 cases were disposed of, all by 34 judges. So we had just a deficit of about 1,000 or 1,400 cases, notwithstanding the fact that we had constitution benches going off, 5, 7, 9 judges. Now, the fact of the matter, Barkha, is this, that we have placed too much of importance, particularly in the Supreme Court, on oral advocacy. And we have to confront ourselves with this. People will say, well, why don't you appoint more judges? We are 34 judges now in the Supreme Court. All right, you make them 38. What happens then? 29,000 cases were filed in the Supreme Court right after COVID. Between COVID and now, the 29,000 has gone up to 61,000. 61,000 is going to become 70 or 80,000. As society becomes more prosperous, people become more rights conscious, that's going to be increasing. If every case which comes to the Supreme Court has to be orally heard, you're staring down the barrel. And we need to have structural changes within the Indian judiciary if truly we have to answer the question of backlog. The district judiciary. Appointments to the district judiciary are made by the states. That is by the governor in consultation with the high courts. Now, there are large vacancies in the district judiciary, which is the base of the pyramid. And there are about 21% vacancies in the manning of judges in the district judiciary, 27% in the administrative staff of the judiciary. Now, if you have to truly find an answer, we need to think of more out-of-the-box solutions. Can we not think of an all-India judicial service? You can preserve the concerns of the states in a federal setup. The states are concerned because they feel that if you have an all-India judiciary, a district judiciary, that will affect the powers of the states to recruit, and they have their own reservations in the states. But what if we have one examination for recruitment to the district judiciary?
Absolutely.
And then the states can recruit from within that merit list, apply their reservations. Every state has different reservations within that list. So, I think the time has come now, 75 years after independence, to take some very hard decisions, particularly in the context of the Supreme Court. Should every case be heard at the stage of oral argument? A second appeal, a civil case which has gone up the ladder, does it have to be heard orally? There are very few Supreme Courts in the world which do the kind of work which our Supreme Court does. And I know how completely overwhelmed and stressed our judges are. But I'm not about just judicial stress or judicial fatigue. I'm about, the danger of our system becoming dysfunctional. Our access to justice model has been so broad-based that we virtually allow anybody and everyone to enter the doors. At some point of time, we have to address this fundamental issue. Are we not going to apply the brakes? If you're not going to apply the brakes, there's a grave danger that the system will become dysfunctional.